Are we actually live already? Probably, right?
Should be. Yep, looks like we are.
All right, good deal. I'm just going to share this out one more place. And then we can see who's here with us and chat with them.
Got 3 watching now.
All right, hey, what's going on, guys? All right, posted.
All right,
Cool.
cool.
Should be good.
All right, let us know if you can hear it. We're using a new microphone, so I just want to make sure. Well, actually, I can do it right now.
Does everything look like it's working for us?
All right,
Looks
that
like
answers that.
We're good.
All right, so what are we talking about today?
Well, I think first thing we need to do is talk about the fact that for this week, for both of us,
Oh, yeah.
we actually had to celebrate this week.
Yep.
I turned 40 this week, the big
Yeah.
4-0.
Yeah, and I turned 31. So,
So Travis and I didn't realize our birthdays were on the same week, but
yeah. A day apart, too.
yeah. So I'm a few years older, but
Yeah,
that's all right.
it's okay. Nothing wrong with that.
So make sure you guys wish us a happy birthday in the chat. And if you guys don't mind, do us a favor, share out this to anywhere else that you watch regularly, or you have any other contacts you think would be interested in our live stream today. We did talk a little bit about a couple things we wanted to talk about today, and I know one of the things that we had, kind of talked to each other about was talking about dirted tanks.
Yeah, where you use actual soil instead of aquarium grade substrates or aquarium grade aqua soils and stuff like that, where you actually just use organic potting soil or just dirt. And talking about that, because it seems like that's something that neither of us have really done. But I actually have a video planned probably 2 weeks from now. I'm probably going to do something, hopefully, as long as things go good, where I'm going to set up a dirted tank. I'll show you guys how to do that. And what soils you can and can't use. But that is something that we were talking about, of actually what soils you should and shouldn't use.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that's interesting because, a lot of people go and buy soil. And my question was, well, I understand there's definitely some benefits to using, a dirted substrate and a dirted tank. And, for some of the benefits for it is, typically dirted tanks have a lot more nutrients than even you're going to get in a lot of the aqua soils.
Right.
Even the ones that are for planted aquariums and that kind of thing, the dirted tanks are going to do really, really well for growing live plants. And so I think that's probably the main benefit of it.
Yeah. So basically, aqua soils, when they develop these, they only put in minute amount of nutrients as opposed to what you would find in natural soil, because you don't cap it with anything, and the substrate is exposed to the water column. So you're going to have the transfer of nutrients into the water column, which is going to result in having algae. So you're going to have algae blooms and all kinds of stuff like that. You're going to have all kinds of problems unless they keep that nutrient level low enough to where there's enough there for the plants, but not enough to leach out and start algae. Where your normal soil, if you were to go out and buy it or get it out of your yard or wherever you're going to get your soil, is going to have a ton of nutrients. Which is why we cap it, one, so it doesn't get all over the aquarium because it can make a huge mess, and also so that the nutrients don't go into the water column and cause algae. So that's why a lot of people usually don't use soil unless they're relatively experienced and understand these things. But that's, yeah, it's a good time.
I'm surprised we haven't had anybody comment yet today. So if you guys are here, just make sure you let us know and say hello, just so we know that that's actually working. I can check it out myself, actually, just to see.
But if you guys have any topics, like this is going to be a free-for-all live stream, basically. So if you guys have any questions or topics you want us to talk about and discuss, feel free to post it in the comments, and we will pretty much answer everything. We'll talk about everything that's in there, and if we don't have anything posted there, we've got a list of stuff that we're going to talk about.
Travis, I think you made the same mistake I made last time. It doesn't look like we can chat and Yeah. So if you guys aren't chatting because it's our fault, let's why don't we end this one and we can restart unless you can change settings in there.
Let me see.
We'll see if we can adjust so
It
we
says
can
it's
get
public.
Huh. That's weird. Well, maybe we just need to start over anyways because there's no chat available.
Try going into it through YouTube instead of...
Yeah. Instead through the link.
Yeah.
Maybe that is the issue.
Yeah, we got a comment there. So it must be working.
Maybe it's just if you click through the link, it's a problem.
Maybe. Yeah, so we figured we'd turn the couch around today so that you guys can actually see some of the tanks in the fish room.
Yeah.
You obviously can't see all of it. It's working now.
Yeah, so if you guys are trying to chat and you clicked through the link on Facebook, you may have a problem with your phone. For some reason, it wasn't working for me, but if I went onto my YouTube, then I could. So,
that's weird.
We'll see.
Hello.
Hi in Quebec.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, when we're talking about those dirty tanks, and Travis kind of mentioned both the benefits of using dirt from, whether you buy store-bought or I wanted to talk a little bit more about using just the dirt you have in your yard, if you have a yard, right? I know some people may live in the city, may not have options for that. But, the one downside of any of them is, yeah, crazy amounts of algae. It's one of those, a lot of nutrients is good for plants. A lot of nutrients is also really good for algae. So if you want a heavily planted tank, I think a dirted substrate can be great if you
it's
really
definitely
work
one of the easiest ways to get a heavily planted tank and have everything be healthy and not run into any issues with nutrient starve out. Because there is such a high level of nutrients in the soil as opposed to regular substrate. So like in my 125 gallon out in my living room, that's just black diamond blasting sand, which is the same substrate that you see in this tank right here. And it's pretty much inert, except for a little bit of iron that's in it. And that's just because it's coal slag. They put a little bit of iron in there. And it's pretty much inert, so I have to use liquid fertilizers and root tabs until the fish tank is established and I can actually get mulm in the bottom because the plants are going to use that mulm as food. And then once it's been established, the plants grow perfectly fine without any kind of fertilizers added to it or anything. So essentially dirt is mulm that is years and years and years old composted down into dirt, and that's essentially all. Organic potting soil, which is what most people will tell you to use, is essentially just compost. There's no fertilizer added to it. It's just broken down browns and greens, so greens being your grass and browns being like dried leaves or wood or anything like that, broken down, and it basically essentially turns back into dirt, right? So and that's going to be your organic soil, and it's organic because there's no actual fertilizer added to it, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and one of those pieces that's kind of that we're talking about the nutrients and not running out. The aqua soils and stuff that you can get, like they're great, and they'll have some they will last for 2 to 3 years depending on how your tank's set up, what kind of plants you have in there. But eventually the nutrients run out of those, and so you kind of go to that same thing. You have to go to those root tabs and start using those root tabs. Whereas I know people, with those dirty tanks, they're getting 10, 11, 12 years and still not running out of those nutrients until that 10 to 12 year mark.
Yep.
And so that's kind of the benefit is you set it up and then that's it. You don't have to do anything as far as feeding your root feeding plants again.
Yep.
And I don't know yet. My guess is, and again, Travis and I haven't done it, either one of us haven't done a dirted tank, but we've been kind of discussing, thinking about it. I imagine that a lot of that's going to get into the water column too. So you probably don't even really have to worry a whole lot about doing for the water column plants, those plants that are pulling from the water column either.
Yeah.
So
so you have problems with your quarries and dirt substrates, so you had to move them to another with carpets. So did you have just dirt? I'm assuming you capped it with sand, right? So If you did cap it with sand, how deep was the cap? Because usually when you do something like that, you want at least an inch. Usually 2 inches is the preferred mark because of fish that dig like that.
Yeah, there's certain fish you definitely would never want to do.
Yeah, so you would
dirty
never
tank.
do a dirted tank with like this medieval cichlid, which is a red devil Midas hybrid. Because if I level that substrate in this tank up here, you can obviously see the giant pile that she's made, and that's just, they're diggers, you know. So
Yeah, any of those fish, like I would think even like dwarf cichlids, because again, you're not going to put these in a community tank.
no,
Typically, goldfish are not in a planted tank; they eat the plants.
Yep.
So if you think about those fish that you can keep in a planted aquarium, you have some of those sand sifters, you have some of those that do dig, and you definitely probably have to avoid most of those.
yeah,
For doing that, but yeah, that's. I'm kind of thinking the same thing as you. Is maybe there wasn't enough of a thick enough cap there on top, and that could be where you got issues with your quarries. I'm not. I think the Hasbrosis, don't they get pretty big too? Those are some of the. I think they're one of the bigger quarries, right? If I'm thinking of the right one.
we can find out here.
No, that's not
Salt
the one
and
I was
peppers?
thinking of. Yeah, no, okay, I was thinking of a different one.
Yeah,
The salt and pepper quarries. Yeah, so those. I mean.
yeah. I mean,
Those
like
are
really,
pretty
any quarry is going to
oversized.
dig a little bit, so it's if the cap's not deep enough, you could definitely run into issues with that.
Yeah, so let us know how thick your cap was on that.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, I'd like to know.
So the other piece too, when you're talking about doing dirt, and a lot of the reason people don't recommend getting dirt from your outdoors
Mm-hmm.
is there's concerns about well what's in that dirt, because if you're using, especially if you have a landscaper, I highly recommend don't go ahead and use what you
Yeah,
have out
no.
there, because they're probably using things like insecticides and
Yeah.
different things of that nature, or even things to kill different weeds that you don't
Mm-hmm.
want in, and all that. None of that's going to be good for your fish tank. So I would definitely avoid using any of if you have a highly manicured lawn, probably not the best place to get your dirt from. But if
Yeah.
you have like some woods in your area, go out in the middle of the woods, because
Yeah, there's nothing really going to be out there unless somebody from a plane drops something, and the chances of that's very slim. But out in the woods where you got your leaves and sticks and weeds that come up and die every year, you're basically that's essentially organic soil,
Yeah.
right? So it's composted down to the point of just becoming dirt.
yeah, and you want to definitely, obviously, you're going to avoid areas where you have like rain runoff, because you don't know
Yep.
what's coming in that rain. So it is something you want to be careful of. If, oh hey, look, this is where the rain comes through, and you see like, man, the ground's really lush here. Well, that may be a good sign. It might be like, oh hey, good, that's going to be a good place to get your dirt. But you also might want to be thinking about like, well, could there, what's spilling into this water,
Mhm.
or what did it run through before it got here?
Yeah.
So that can be an issue. Where plants can handle a lot of different stuff in the water that fish can't.
Yep.
So just because it's good for your plants doesn't necessarily mean it will be good for the fish.
Yeah, and that's how was it Dr. Diana Wallstad?
Mm-hmm.
When she came up with the Wallstad method, which is essentially what we're talking about. She started off with tanks without fish, just learning how to do the horticultural part with the plants, and the ammonia levels in those tanks were sky high, but the plants will use the ammonia as a food source, so it doesn't bother them at all. They just have an unlimited amount of food at that point. So that's what Tim's talking about, where you got to be careful with the amount of nutrient levels that are in the water. But yeah. Hey, Scott.
So the other thing I was thinking about though is, obviously, and this is where I kind of thought, maybe some of you guys have experience and you've used some dirt from outside. If anybody has, I'd love to hear about it. Because I was also thinking, like we live in Pennsylvania, it's a big state, but if you look at like across our state, there's lots of farmland down in like southeastern Pennsylvania.
Yep.
And there's lots of corn farms, there's lots of wheat farms, things like that. And they're growing lots of crops down there. Now up here we have a lot of farms too, because Pennsylvania's a lot of woods, but we don't have a lot of plant farms. We have a lot of cow farms up here.
Yeah.
And what I was thinking is, there's a reason for it. It's because plants grow really well down southeast PA. they don't tend to grow as well up here.
Yeah.
And so I was almost thinking, I wonder how much impact just even going from our state where, you know, you have lots of different, you know, climates and soil makeup, how much that would actually impact. Is there certain, you know, like, okay, we have lots of oak trees. Mm-hmm. Well, oak, I think, gives you lots of, like, acidic. Mm-hmm. So if you take that dirt where you had lots of oak, is that going to be really acidic dirt? And how much is that going to affect you? Yeah, it would.
So, like, normally soil where we live, so if you grow plants, like if you do any kind of farming or homesteading or gardening, one of the things that you check on every once in a while is the pH of your soil, because you don't want it to get too alkaline, but you don't want it too acidic either. But usually the soil that we have here in Pennsylvania is usually running around a pH of 6.5, 6.4. So it's pretty acidic. So that's another thing that you'd have to watch too, is the acidity, because you could get some leach out of that. I kept them in 1 to 2.5 inches of black sand. It was a blackwater aquarium. Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I definitely would have thought that was a large jump. So I don't know what the.
Hey, Tetra guy. Brian Meyer, just got my first live plant, put in the recommended amount of fertilizer, then the algae went kind of crazy. Is there a way to judge how much I should put in? So that's one of the things that these manufacturers don't really tell you. So if you have a fertilizer like, well, this is Excel, but we're going to say this is a bottle of Flourish, right? If you have this versus a bottle of, I don't know if I have it in here. No, Easy Green. The Easy Green is like, I was looking at the numbers a few months back, and it's like 10 times more potent than the Flourish. So, but they recommend the same dosing. So you kind of have to look at that and compare, and then you got to realize that most of these companies are selling you a product assuming that you have a tank specifically for plants and that you have a tank full of plants, right? So I've basically switched over to using just the Easy Green, and I think that's 1 milliliter per 10 gallons is what he recommends on dosing.
Yeah, he's got that pump head. You just do that.
He has one pump as a milliliter, or close enough anyway. And basically, like, even on my 125 gallon out there, you would do 12.5 pumps, right, which is 12.5 milliliters. I think when I was dosing it, I only ever did 5. I was only ever doing half doses. And on tanks that only have, like, some plants in it, like my my goldfish tank over there, when I first started that, I was only putting in, like, 1 pump just to get nutrients in the water. You don't need, like, full saturation of nutrients. As long as there's something in there, they'll do fine. The issue you're going to start coming into is with having just small amounts of nutrients adding in, you just have to watch that you're not getting deficiencies, which they're pretty easy to pick up on. The leaves will start getting light colored first, and then after the light coloring, they'll start getting a little yellow, then they'll start deteriorating. So as long as you can see that the new, or not the new leaves, but the older leaves, if they start getting a little faded, you need to bump up your nutrients a little bit.
Yeah, and I think, as you start, the other thing is, you said you just added the plant. So, in all honesty, I don't add any nutrients to my water when I first get a plant.
Yeah.
Because typically, depending on that plant, and what you have, some of them will go through where they completely die back because they've been grown out of water initially, and now they need to switch over and convert to growing in water.
Yeah.
So I don't even use fertilizer typically when I first put a plant in. Usually I wait and give it a little bit, like 2 weeks or so, just to kind of start getting used to being in that water and in that tank. And then I look at it. And you're talking about, like, that's basically how I judge when I haven't used enough fertilizer because my plants aren't looking quite as healthy. The other thing is, if you have a tank that's full of anubias, you probably don't ever need to use fertilizer. Those plants need very, very little. But if you have a tank where you are, it's full of some fast-growing plants, some stem plants, maybe you have some bacopa or some nacris or pogostem and salatus, right? Those are all plants that are going to grow much faster. They're going to need more nutrients. So the fact that you've got a lot of algae, I guess the other question is, how long has the tank been set up too? Because that also impacts your algae. So there could be a number of factors going on there. And I'm guessing that you just set it up because you just added a plant, and
Yeah.
There's a good chance he didn't even need any of.
Yeah, because one thing a lot of people don't realize is your tap water isn't clean, right? Unless you have an RODI unit in your house or an RO unit, your tap water has minerals in it. It has all of these fertilizers in it already, um, just from nature. So you're going to have iron, you're going to have calcium, you're going to have magnesium, you're going to have all this stuff in your water already. So chances are, if you set up an aquarium, you don't need fertilizer right away. Because all of that's already there. Your plant will be able to start with that. Fertilizer is kind of that in the middle range before it's fully established, but after the water's nutrients have been used. So anywhere in that in between is kind of where the root tabs and your liquid fertilizers are going to come into key play there. But pretty much once the tanks are set up, they basically take care of themselves, aside from water changes every once in a while.
Yeah, so a lot of factors involved there, but yeah, I mean, and it's one of those, I think, plants, especially when you first start out with plants, they're tricky because you don't know. And then as you start doing them, like, the longer you work with plants, the easier they get. And does get to a point where initially, they just take care of themselves, and you add here and there to your water changes, but they don't need a lot.
Your water changes are going to come in key with Planet Aquarium too. For two reasons. You're going to be reintroducing your nutrients back into the water that's already in your water, so it's basically doing a water change and adding your nutrients back in. Plus, you're going to be agitating the surface of the water really hard, which is actually going to add in a ton of oxygen, so you're going to get really high oxygen saturation, and you're going to be adding in a lot of CO2 because there's CO2 in the air we breathe, so that's how you get CO2 in a low-tech aquarium through an air stone. You do get some levels of CO2. I believe it's 8% saturation of CO2 is what you can achieve through natural aerating of the water with an air stone or surface agitation. And if you're doing injection, it's like 40%. It's weird how I remember this stuff.
Yeah, I love the fact
it's just it's like 40% saturation with injection. So you can get CO2 in your aquarium for your plants just through water changes and air stones. So it's not even something you need. Because people ask me that all the time. Do I need CO2? No, you don't. You can. All of my not all. One of my tanks has CO2 injection, and believe it or not, my tank that doesn't have CO2 injection does better than the one with the CO2. So it's just
and it's definitely one of those. It's a balancing game, and it is trying to understand. Okay, what does my tank need, and it takes no tank is starting off well, but give it 6 months, and
it's going to come in. It's going to come in
well, and you're going to do well with it.
Yeah, that's the one thing in aquariums that a lot of people don't realize is patience in this hobby is the biggest virtue because everything here takes time. There's nothing that you can do where it's like, I'm going to do this today, and tomorrow it's going to look awesome, right? And if you go out and buy a ton of plants, a ton of driftwood, a ton of stone, and your tank does look awesome, there's not going to be enough there to support it. So you're going to have a lot of plant die-off, you're going to have big ammonia spikes, you're going to have all these issues, your plants are going to die back. But then 6 months from now, it'll all come back.
Yeah.
Right? So you've got your give and take with that.
So, I'm not even going to try to say that name, DJ. Yeah, that one. Any bucket list fish or fish you regret. Also, are most all-in-one liquid fertilizers the same besides API and Flourish? Looking at Co-op or Thrive.
So if you actually, it's funny, I actually put all of these in a spreadsheet once and actually compared everything. They are not identical, right? All of their levels are going to have slight variations. So like Aquarium Co-op has a little bit higher iron, and like so on and so forth. But the levels of the nutrients, how high they are and how low they are, as long as you have your key 3, which is your NPK, which is your nitrogen, potassium, and K. Phosphate? Hang on. I'm drawing a blank.
All right, well, while you're doing that, I'll answer that second part of the question. So, for me, what kind of fish do I have that I regret? There's only one fish that I have that I regret, and that's zebra danios. Now, they're great fish. I'm just tired of them. I've used them to start every fish tank I ever had, I think. Yeah. And I've got 2 left, and when they're done, I don't think I'm going to get any more zebra danios for a long time. And it's not they're not a great fish. They definitely are, and I think everybody should have them at some point. They're cool to watch, but I've kind of moved away from them personally. And as far as fish that I want, there is a plethora of them. So
Yeah.
which one do I want next? Is it? I don't know. I really want some rainbow darters someday. I don't think I'm going to get them anytime soon, but that's on my list of. Yep, I really want them. And the only reason I say I'm not going to get them soon is because then you're talking about doing a cold water tank, and right now all of my tanks are tropical fish, and I would have to bring another tank. You have to dedicate a tank to one fish, and I'm not good about dedicating a tank to one fish.
Yeah.
I like lots of
I have
tanks.
I have a couple tanks with just one fish, like this one here, and that's 75 gallons dedicated for one fish. And these two tanks here, I've got 55 gallon here and 55 gallon here, and they're solo fish tanks as well, because they're all the Red Devil Midas hybrids, and I think they're awesome. Super personable fish if you're looking for a single fish that is like a dog, right, and will follow you around, will do things. That's it. That's it right there. Like, she's right here. She'll follow me around if I move. Like, she'll chase me. She's probably hungry. That's why she's sitting right here above my head. But yeah. So, but it is kind of hard because I look at these tanks sometimes like, man, I wish I could do more with that. But I do have other tanks that are fully loaded community tanks, and I think that's kind of why I do this, because I have that.
Yeah, and one of the questions was, how many tanks do we each have and how many gallons? And I think Trash, you have about 20 now. I think we counted this last time we did live stream.
Yeah, I have 22. Gallon wise, I think I'm pretty close to 2,000 indoors. Not counting the ponds outside. If we count the ponds outside, there's a 1,000-gallon pond out there and a 200-gallon pond out there. So that put me around 3,400 gallons, something like that.
And I don't have nearly as many tanks. I have 7 tanks. And I'm probably around 300 gallons. So not nearly as many as Travis. But Travis owns a house and I rent. And so that's a big difference right there. Because someday I'm going to have to move. And someday I'm going to have to move all those tanks. So, but anyways, back to the question you're asking about the difference between...
Oh yeah, as long as you have your big three is what we're going to call it. That's your NPK. And I was right. It was nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. That's your NPK. As long as you have those three, those are the 3 main building blocks in aquarium fertilizer, which all of these fertilizers have elevated levels of those 3. And the nitrogen you're getting in your tank naturally anyway, right? So that's the one thing you really want to watch, because nitrogen is one of your biggest keys for algae. So if you're already having nitrate in your aquarium, 40 parts per million and higher, and you're adding fertilizer in on top of that, now you're sending your nitrate up to 60, 80, possibly higher, depending on what the nitrogen in the fertilizer is. So you got to be careful adding it in. So make sure you read through that, especially for nitrogen, because you already are producing it with your fish waste. So yeah, but they're all basically the same, because they're all going to be adding in your micronutrients. They all have your macronutrients. So as long as you add some kind of fertilizer, if you need it, it'll work fine. Right? Even I used Flourish for the longest time, and Flourish is not a complete fertilizer. You have to go through and you have to buy their whole line of additional nutrients, and it's a giant pain. It costs like $80 to $100 to get all the different bottles, and like Thrive and Co-op, it's all in one bottle. It costs like $15, right? So it's like, I don't even know why anybody buys Flourish anymore. Plus, with the concentration of the Thrive and the Co-op and the Easy Green, you can do partial doses and not even do full doses, and it'll still be enough.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's my kind of rant on fertilizer. Kind of got out of control there.
Yeah.
But,
that's right. Lewis asked, how many clown killies in a 5-gallon without any other species?
If they're by themselves, usually they get like 1 inch to 1.5 inches long. Put it this way: if you only have a 5-gallon, maybe a trio. If you have a 10-gallon, you could probably do more. It depends too. Like, do you have plants in there? Do you have driftwood? Do you have stone? How deep is your substrate? Because the one thing a lot of people think about, or a lot of people don't think about, and I think about, is if you have a 75-gallon aquarium like this one here, right? It's 75 gallons when you measure the outside dimension of the glass. So you're losing probably 5 to 10, 5 to 7 gallons, depending on the size of the tank, with glass thickness itself. right? So now you're down to 70 gallons, and then you add in 100 pounds of substrate, so you're losing 2 inches deep across the whole bottom of the tank. So now you've just cut out another 15 to 20 gallons, and now you only actually have 50 gallons of water in here, and then you're going to add in rocks and driftwood and plants, and now you've cut down the space even more. So you've taken your 75-gallon aquarium down to 45 gallons of water, right? So do you really have a 75-gallon aquarium? You have the footprint of a 75-gallon aquarium, but you've only got 45 gallons of livable space for your fish. So that's something that you have to take in consideration too. But I mean, if you 5-gallon tanks are hard because they're small.
They are small,
right? If you have a plan of getting a bigger one in the future, I'd say probably a 10-gallon would suit you perfectly fine with some clown killies. Give them something to crawl around, some nice substrate they can get into.
Yeah, I think your recommendation of 3 is probably a good recommendation. I know if I was doing it, I'd do more than that.
Yeah, I know you would.
Because the way I keep fish, and again, this is about how do you keep fish, and how good are you at, keeping plants and that type of thing, and because all those things they play a factor. I'd probably go with like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
But I know I'm pushing it.
Yeah.
So 3 is probably the better recommendation. Not knowing you. You knowing you, if you think like, no, I'm pretty good at this. I've been doing it a while. Yeah, okay, you could probably do a few more. But yeah, I mean, I agree though. 10-gallon would be better. 10-gallon, you'd have no problem doing 6.
Yeah.
And I think they'd be happier in that.
A little more space in there. Yeah, fish poop is fertilizer. Yep, fish poop is probably the best fertilizer that is ever going to get put in your tank that you don't have to put in there, right? So, and they actually make. So this is something that I'm probably going to talk once spring rolls around, because we're in the dead of winter right now, and I start making videos with the aquaponics system. They actually make fish foods for aquaponics that is specifically driven to help fertilize your plants. So it meets the fish's dietary requirements and need for food, and it adds extra nutrients in there so that when the fish passes it, you are providing extra nutrients to your plants as well. So it's not cheap. It's not at all. But if you have a large system where you're growing for a community, it's definitely worth it. But they do make foods that are specifically marketed towards fish and plants at the exact same time. It's pretty wild. But yeah, fish poop, just with basic commercial fish foods that you're feeding, probably one of the best fertilizers.
Yeah, especially if you're doing a variety of food, which I always recommend doing a variety of food for your fish, because doing that variety means that there's going to have different nutrients in different foods, and hopefully that'll do well for your fish. Like I shouldn't say never. I very rarely use fertilizer in my guppy tanks because guppies will pretty much eat everything. So I can feed them everything. And then they poop like crazy because guppy tanks are often a very what's your recommendation for a guppy tank? There is no real recommendation for a guppy tank because they're going to just breed until they don't do well in there anymore, or till you can't keep up with their water changes enough. So that's a tank. But the other thing I was going to say with fish poop, so a lot of people always ask me how do you vacuum the substrate in your planted aquarium, with all those plants? And the answer is you don't.
Yeah, you don't do it.
You stop doing it if you are. It's going to disrupt your plants. It's going to disrupt, but they're using all that stuff, all that all that mold that builds up on the bottom of your aquarium is great for those plants. So stop vacuuming your substrate. Make your life easier. And I think that's another reason I really like doing planted aquariums, because all I have to do is change water. I don't have to suck up. Now Travis doesn't have to suck up anything with his fish here either. Because they mix up all the soil. It all gets into the water column anyways. So depending on what kind of fish you have, there's a lot of tanks out there. You probably never have to vacuum the substrate. Now, if you're doing fake plants or you're doing just a hardscape, well then maybe you need to. But if you're growing lots of plants, don't.
Yeah, it's not worth it. And I mean, it's funny because people say oh, it leaves such a mess on the top. Well, that mess that you see on the top of the fish mold, the bacteria in your aquarium is actually breaking that down. And if you give it a day, you won't even see it anymore. It'll fall down into the substrate and you'll completely forget about it. And that's actually another you actually made a comment about it before, another video that I have to make. I took a breeder box and just hung it on the back of my community tank out there, and it's just running a light amount of air, and you'd be amazed how much that actually collects of the fish mold that you would never see in your aquarium because it falls into the substrate. But because there's no substrate in there, you can actually see it all. So I'll be doing a video on that in the future too. And it's kind of like a dual purpose now. So it'll be for the fertilizer of the aquarium, and then it's also filters on your aquarium don't remove waste from your aquarium. It just hides it and collects it somewhere else.
Yeah.
So a lot of people think that filters is actually like, oh, it's cleaning my aquarium. No, it's collecting all of the poop in your aquarium. So it's holding it in one spot. It's still in the system of your tank. So it's still going to be producing all your nitrate and ammonia and all that. But it's just moved somewhere else. It's not in the visible portion. So that'll be another video. I'll talk about that more in depth then.
Yeah, and the breeder box that's just one of those fluval breeder boxes, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that one, it was a Marina. But
Marina, same thing.
Yeah.
If you're looking for them now, I don't know if they're still under the Marina brand at all.
I don't
but
think
I know
so.
you can get them under the Fluval brand. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can go to Ian's Fish Room, and I've got some videos on those breeder boxes specifically. There's a smaller one and a larger one. But yeah, I never even would have thought about using it for what you're using it for.
Yeah.
But I find a ton of uses for those breeder boxes.
Yes.
So, Lewis, so yeah, if you're moving those pound killers to the 29 at some point in the future, I would definitely say go with the 6.
You'd be golden.
I think they'll be happy there for that time, and yeah, definitely that would go well. So, and thanks for tuning in, and have a good time. And so next question, Chris Palmer, any experience with electric blue Acara?
Recently seen some videos with people keeping electric blues and mollies. I have a 125 gallon tank with 50 mollies, platies, variatus, 1 bristlenose plico, and 3 mystery snails. Can I keep one? So this is one of those things that is completely situational because they're a cichlid. I believe they fall under dwarf cichlids. Blue Acaras.
I don't know if they are or not, because they're a little bit bigger.
Size.
Yeah, like they get. I mean, they're.
I think they get like
4 inches, 5 inches,
Yeah.
something like that. Maybe even up to 6. I haven't kept them. I've thought about keeping them because I do think that they are a cool fish, and a lot of people do keep them in community aquariums.
Yeah, up to 7.
Up to 7. Okay, so yeah, they get pretty good size, and they are a cichlid. Now they're a pretty peaceful cichlid.
Yeah.
So go back to the list of fish he was talking about keeping them with.
Yeah, mollies, platies, bristlenose plico.
I mean, I'd be fine with the bristlenose. It'd be the mollies and the platies. Like, I'm certainly not concerned at all about the bristlenose with it.
Yeah, no. Plico's with pretty much any fish, unless it's capable of eating it in one shot. Pretty much good.
My guess is if your mollies and platies are full grown, they probably would be okay.
Yeah. I would recommend, if you're planning on getting one, try to get a juvenile, like really young, small one, and let it grow up with these other fish. That way it doesn't necessarily see them as food, it just sees them as other fish that are around. But if you start off with one that is larger, you don't know if they were ever live fed, you don't know if they've ever, what condition they've been kept in, how they've been treated. So you don't know if you put that in, if it's just going to destroy your tank, wreak havoc. So definitely, if you're going to do something like that, where you're going to try to put a cichlid in with tropical community, essentially, I would definitely start with something small. That being said, I have cichlids in my community, but they're definitely smaller. I think the biggest cichlids I have in there are the crebensis, and they're probably about 4 inches.
Yeah, they're getting good size.
You know, they're fairly good size. But I've got the crebensis in there. I've got some epistogramma hongsloys in there. So, I mean, the cichlids, you can keep them in there, but my community is a little bit more aggressive, too, because it's the barb community. So, you know, it's kind of hard. It's one of those things that you would have to try and see if it works. But keep a close eye on it. Start juvenile.
Yeah, and you better have a plan in case it doesn't. I think, my guess is, as long as you had enough plants in there, I think it would be okay, but you're always taking a chance.
Yeah.
And the route is, I mean, that's always the case with a lot of fish, you know, and especially when you're doing community tanks, you know, sometimes they work out great, and other times they're a
Mhm.
disaster. And we do our best to make sure they work out great. And if they don't, you know, have other plans.
Yep.
That's what I do, especially with like the dwarf cichlids. Those are, you know, one of the fish that I keep. And I've had rams, and I've had pistogramma, and I've got some crebensis now, and they, for the most part, they leave each other alone, you know, or leave the other fish alone. But every once in a while, and my understanding is that's kind of the same thing with the blue acara and the electric blue acara, and so I would give it a shot.
Yeah,
But
I actually know somebody that has a single blue acara. They have um, crebensis. They have guppies. They have cherry shrimp in there, and everything seems to do fairly well. I think they've got it in a 55 gallon. But like you said, they do have a lot of moss and low-lying plants for the smaller fish and shrimp to hide in. They've got lots of caves for the fish to hide in. They've got line of sight blocks, which that's probably the biggest key, is having a line of sight block because that curbs aggression a lot.
yeah,
But yeah, so stuff like that. If in a small group, put it this way, if you wanted to do a group of acaras, I would not even bother doing it in a community tank.
yeah,
Because with cichlids, and this pretty much goes for all of them, I believe, as soon as you start having fry, you can pretty much say goodbye to everything else in that tank. Cichlids are very aggressive when they come to spawning and protecting their fry. So once you have fry, unless the parents are defensive of just the fry and stay real close to them, um, other cichlids go out and will attack anything in a 4-foot area. So it's, if
Yeah.
you're going to do that, do one. But if you're going to do a group of them, I would get a separate tank and just do a group of electric blue acaras. They probably look pretty good in a 55 gallon, have a bunch of them moving around. Just because of the way they are, the flash they have when they move looks pretty nice.
I'd probably say even I'd probably go with a 75 gallon if I was doing a group of them. I mean, you think 7 or 8 inches, you know, if you have
Yeah,
a 75, you can probably put in 5 or 6 of them.
yeah.
I think 55 would almost be. You can do it. There's lots of things you can do. I'd rather go with the 75 for
Yeah.
each of them. But yeah, they're definitely. You know, we were talking about some of the dwarf cichlids. Yeah, they definitely get more aggressive when they have fry in the tank, but they're small enough that you know, the other fish can typically get away. I mean, I keep a lot of nano fish, and I've had my crebensis have fry in the tank, and they've done okay, but they learn to stay away from that area.
Yep.
You know, my tank's big enough that there's space for them away from them. But yeah, I agree with you. I wouldn't do I wouldn't do a group in a community tank. I don't think it'll work out for you. You know, unless maybe you have a 300 gallon tank like Travis
Yeah,
does.
I mean, if you
Well, then
have
you might be able to do that.
yeah, if you have a huge tank, then you could probably do it. But if you have something that's going to be like, oh, I went to PetSmart or Petco and got a tank, then it's like I don't know. Unless you got like a 125 or something, maybe.
Yeah.
But if you're going to do something like that, you got to go big. So.
Well, we're at the bottom of the chat there, so if you guys do have any other questions, let us know. You know, what other questions you have. One of the things that I did want to ask you guys to do for me, I am getting very, very close to 1,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel. So if you're here watching, you're enjoying watching Travis and I talk about fish, you know, I've got a lot of videos out on my channel, some live streams, things like that you can come check out. I'd love it if you'd come over and hit that subscribe button for me. It'd mean a lot for, you know, my birthday. You know, you could help me out and do a little birthday present for me. So, you know, and if you guys haven't already subscribed to Travis's channel, definitely hit that subscribe button while you're here.
Yeah, I would definitely appreciate it. I kind of been slacking on the uploading, but things have been pretty busy this winter. So hoping once we get a little bit warmer here, I have a whole list of videos that I have planned to make. I'm actually going to be redoing my entire fireplace mantle. I have to build a frame, pour some concrete, and then I'm going to be setting up 2 planted aquariums up there. And I'm thinking about doing one dirted and one with root tabs and liquid fertilizer. That way we can do a direct comparison over time, and we can actually see which one's better, what the differences are, and issues that we've had. So I think that would be an amazing video series to help teach people
Yeah.
which way they want to go for what they have. So we could definitely do that. What is the biggest fish tank I'd consider? How many gallons are in the ocean?
I think that this is one of those questions that, before I had a 75 gallon, I remember telling my wife, like, I think I just need a 75 gallon, then I'll be happy. Because I put lots of fish in there. I think that's as big as I want to go.
Yeah.
And then I got a 75 gallon. It's like, I could probably go, 125, 200. So I think the problem is what's the biggest? It comes down to, I don't know if there is a true answer to that question. Really.
Yeah, I don't know, because the largest aquarium I've ever seen, or fish tank, right? The largest one I've ever seen, I'm trying to remember, it was down in Florida. We were just down there in December. I think was it 1.5 million gallons of water
Oh my word.
in this tank? And it was, oh my God, it was amazing. There was a tunnel you could walk out into the center of it, and then it was all glass. You could just look around and see all the fish swimming around, and they had turtles.
Yeah.
It was super cool.
Yeah, but that's way beyond, to take care of. So I guess the question would be, what's the biggest you think you could take care of in your own home? Like, at what point do you think
Put it this way, right now I have 22 tanks. If I took them all down and set up one tank, I would probably do anywhere in the range from 800 to 1,500 gallons.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was thinking about, like, you were talking, I was joking with Travis, because he's got a lot of Java moss here in his tank, and it's getting really close to his intake for his, filter there. And I said, Travis, what are you going to do to clean off the Java moss off there? And I think that's the problem. When you start getting bigger, like, I got little short arms, I'm a big guy, but short arms. Trying to reach in the back. I couldn't come close to reaching the back of this now.
Yeah, and I actually have this 300 here that's right next to Tim there with my goldfish in it, and that tank is 6 foot long, 3 feet front to back. Now, most people, they deal with aquariums 55 gallons, 75, 125. You can reach the bottom of those. You can reach the back. It's not a big deal. The 300 gallon, if I want to do anything in the back bottom, I need a snorkel. So I can actually get my head under the water and still be able to breathe and see what I'm doing, because I can't reach back there. I'm 6'2", so
yeah, you're not a small guy.
Yeah, I'm not a small guy, and I got a long arm span, and I can't reach back. I have to use the algae scrapers and stuff if I want to move some rocks around or something like that to be able to reach down there. I mean, even I did a video. It was a little short video, but in order to hook my canister filter up, I actually had to get in it, right? Because I can't reach the back of that thing, and that's the one thing that people don't really think about when you have large aquariums. There's actually two things: is how are you going to maintain it, right? Because you're not going to be able to reach it. And once you get into tanks like 700 gallons, you have to get in it. Like, you don't have any other choice. And at that point, if you go bigger than that, you're going to need scuba gear if you want to clean algae. Like,
yeah,
I was gonna say, no way, unless you have the ability to set it in the middle of a room and walk around it, and have an algae scraper with a string tied up over top to the bottom, because if it ever drops, you're never going to get it back. So it's like, it's one of those things, is how big are you willing to be able to work with, and what can your house and floor support?
Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation.
And that's a whole nother.
But I was going to say, I mean, even, like, I love your 300 gallon tank, but I don't want it.
Yeah.
I don't, I think for me, and again, I think this is one of those, until you have it, then your mind changes, and you're like, oh, okay. But I think for me, the biggest that I really want to take care of would probably be that 200. I'm trying to think, because that's 200 is 24 inches front to back. Is that right?
It's 30 inches tall, 24 front to back, and 6 foot long is a 220, I believe.
Yeah. So I think you're right. Like, I think for me that would probably be, because even then I'm not gonna be able to reach the back very well. So I think that's probably where I would max out again, until I had it, and then I'd be like, oh.
Yeah, I want
this
something
isn't
bigger.
too bad. Or, the other thing is, if I didn't have to do the maintenance on it. Like you see some of those, now, if you guys ever watched the show Tanked, they do a lot of stupid stuff in that show, and don't do really good justice with their fish. That being said, they make some pretty cool looking tanks.
Yeah.
And now, if I could have something like that, and I could hire a maintenance group to come in and take care of it, okay, well then, I'd go for a bigger tank.
Yeah.
But if I've got to do the maintenance on it, I'm not interested in going above 200,
Yeah.
220, that kind of.
The largest tank that somebody had in their house that I've seen in person was 730 gallons, and that's actually the guy that I got the 300 gallon from. He was getting rid of his small aquarium, so and he had my local fish store, the owner, he was paying him to come clean it, and I don't know if I would want to get in that tank and clean those with those fish that he had in there. No
Yeah.
way. You'd be losing fingers and maybe hand, and like, it's crazy. Yes. Yep, we're still doing a video. Do you want to come in and say hi real quick and then go back out? No?
Are you worried you're going to get in trouble, Mom? She said not to be on the video.
We're almost done, kiddo. So we're going to be doing this live stream for maybe another 10 minutes. We're shooting for an hour. So if you guys have any other final questions or anything you want to hear us talk about, go ahead and drop it down there in the comments section. If not, do you have any other topics you had?
Well, so I was thinking, you know, like you're talking about setting up some more fish tanks and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
What limits you from doing more fish tanks? Now, because I kind of think I know the answer, and I think your limitations probably similar to my limitations.
Space.
All right, if that's all your limitations, that's one of my limitations is space. But I think the other limitation for me is who's in charge of that space.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, so space is number one, and then, yeah, like you said, who's in charge of the space. So, like, it got to the point where I was setting tanks up in the house where I was looking around and going, well, if I move that couch, you know, and stick it over there, it's kind of, the couch is kind of in a weird spot, but I could put tanks over here, you know, and that's kind of how it was. And my fish room originally was tanks on all four walls.
Yeah.
Right? And then it got to the point of, well, I can't come in here and just sit down and enjoy it, so I eliminated tanks off of one whole wall to put this up. And then I was like, all right, well, I cut the tanks back, we're pretty good. And then all of a sudden the itch came back, and it was like, I need to set up more tanks. And now I've got tanks in my wife's office, which I'm not really even back there that much. So she's got tanks now that she didn't want. So I am trying to cut back a little bit. And she's, when I hit 30 aquariums that time, she was like, that's it. Like, you're not putting up anymore. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, I got upstairs yet? She's like, no. She's like, no, you're not doing any more. So now I've got to cut down to 22. And I'm pretty comfortable at 22. So I think that's kind of where it's going to be for a little while. I was planning on building a second fish room, but I think that's going to change into a different plan. But yeah, that's
I was wondering. So cause I know you talked before about that. You decided to put that idea on hold, huh?
Yep.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it is. I mean, when you think about, you know, I want more tanks, but I don't have a good spot for them, so that is definitely part of it.
Yeah.
But then, then the wife, like, I've got 3 tanks in my bedroom, and she's not exactly thrilled about that, and that's okay. I mean, not that I don't want her to be happy with it. I've worked to try to make them a little quieter in there, and I've done some things to make it look a little nicer for her. I've got, just did a recent video on a 40 breeder that I aquascaped. Well, that's because I was making changes and trying to make them look nicer instead of what was there to keep her happier. But there's definitely that. Okay, I can only push this so far before
it starts coming back.
Before it becomes a problem, and I don't want it to be a problem for anybody.
Yeah. I definitely don't want to inconvenience anybody with my hobby, especially the person I live with. You know, because they kind of make.
And I think as guys, we struggle with that.
Yeah.
Because we and probably anybody does, but I think as guys we tend to you don't think always about how your actions impact other people or what you say impacts other people or so I think it's one of those the longer I'm married, the more I have learned that I try to be thoughtful about that. But Scott, at least I'm going to be at Keystone Clash. I'm signed up and ready to go. Did you sign up and get ready to go?
Not yet. I still got to do that.
Okay, so
I'm definitely doing that today before Tim leaves.
Yeah, because it's almost the end of February,
days,
and if you guys don't know about Keystone Clash is, I want to say it's like the biggest hobbyist show, at least on the East Coast. There's other aquarium shows that are bigger.
Yeah.
But I think most of them are shows put on, like Aquashella, I think is going on even right now.
Yeah, I think that's in Chicago and Texas they do that.
No, they have one in Florida right now. But those shows are put on by like manufacturers and things like that. Keystone Clash is put on by 2 fish groups in Southeast Pennsylvania, the Lancaster, and I want to say it's the York Club, I think are the
I
two.
believe so.
I may be wrong, but they're putting on. So there's going to be in Morgantown this year in September. So if you're interested, it's definitely worth going to. It's going to be my second year going. And
Yeah, I've never been. The only convention I've ever been to, I went to the Aquatic Experience, and it was awesome. I was there. It was super cool. Got to meet Corey, Dustin from Dustin's Fish Tanks. I got to meet KG Tropicals was there. Primetime Aquatics was there. I got to meet and talk to all those guys. And then I found out that they're never doing it again.
yeah, so okay. So the Keystone Clash September 23rd through the 25th. So it's a Friday through Sunday. There's an auction. There's different speakers that come in. It is definitely an awesome time.
Yeah.
And so definitely I will be there. I'm going to get Travis to sign up. But anyways, if you're watching this and you're thinking about going, if you go there right now, go to the Keystone Clash. It has a Facebook group. Somewhere on that Facebook group, I know there's a discount code you can use so that you can get $25 off. But that's only, it's like the earliest bird gets the worm or gets the fish or something like that. But it's only through this month. So if you're watching it now, you're thinking about coming to Keystone Clash, get on their Facebook group, find it, and get that discount code so that you get your $25 off. But I will definitely be there. I'm looking forward to it. So absolutely. Now, a couple other questions we had come in.
Biggest myth or common opinion that you would disagree with? There's a lot of them.
Yeah, there is a lot of them. You know, and common opinion that you disagree with.
I think the biggest common opinion that I disagree with, and you'll probably agree with me on this one, is the inch per gallon rule. That is such bogus. So if you think about like, oh, an inch per gallon, if you have a red tail catfish that is 50 inches long, that means you can put him in a 55-gallon aquarium as well as like 5 neon tetras.
Yeah, no.
Right? So no, absolutely not. If you really sit down and do the math, I actually sat down and did this a while ago. If you go by cubic inches of fish, if you're able to somehow calculate that or even approximate it, that gets you pretty close. And it's usually fairly accurate. So if you look at like my red devil that's up here, she's about 12 inches, she's about 1.5 inches wide and 8 inches tall. And if you do that math, it comes out around like anywhere from 70 to 80 cubic inches. So it's like 75 gallon. Seems pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, so and then if you look at guppies, right, like how many guppies can you cram in a cubic inch? Probably like 5 of them, 6 of them.
Yeah.
So like 5 or 6 a gallon. That's probably not.
Well, I was
too
going to
bad.
say, yeah, and if you look at some of my aquariums and how many guppies I've kept in, I've kept 300 guppies in a 29 gallon.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was full. Like no doubt about it. I do lots of water changes. But yeah, that 1 inch per rule. I think it's one of those. I think it makes sense.
It makes sense if you're brand new to the hobby.
Yeah.
You've never kept fish before, right? And they don't want you to overload your bioload, right? Especially starting off. So if you get 10 neon tetras in a 10 gallon, right? And that's 1 inch of fish per gallon. It's a good starting point, but it's for tropical fish, like the small fish. You can't be like, oh, like inch per gallon, and oh, I'm gonna put my 12-inch red devil in a 10-gallon aquarium. Like it doesn't make sense when you get into larger fish. If you're keeping the little ones as a starter, sure, I guess.
Yeah, well, and also know like how big are those fish going to get?
Yeah.
'Cause that red tail catfish starts off that big when you
Yeah,
buy him,
and
and
they're
then
like-
he's
Yeah, and then
that
they get
big in a
4
year,
foot.
you know. So
Yeah.
that's probably the best answer that I can think of off the top of my head. So
Yeah. Thoughts on a Riparium versus planted tanks, pros and cons? Capitated? I want to make the leap but not sure. So, there's so many different names for that style of aquarium. I've heard aquaterrarium, I've heard paludarium, riparium. They're all basically about the same thing. I think they're awesome. I actually had one for quite a while where I had 2 waterfalls running out of it with a pond pump that I put in the back of a 20-gallon high, and I had fish. They were white cloud minnows. That way I didn't have to heat it, because heating that tank after doing all the rockscape and the construction. It was kind of difficult to get a heater back there, but if you want to do one, I would say go for it. You know, it's not any different than keeping a traditional aquarium. If you can hide your filtration behind your structure or your scape, I would definitely try to do that. I have videos on how to do it if you want to do something
I
like
think you
that.
had, what, 2 or 3 videos?
Yeah, I have 3 videos on how to do a full build of if you want to do like rockscape that comes up out of the water, how to actually do it. It's pretty easy. Pretty much anybody would be able to do it. But yeah, if you want to do a riparium, go for it. There's really no cons. The pros are going to be, well, the cons is you're reducing water volume, so you can't keep larger fish, right? You're going to have to do smaller ones, stuff that can live in the reduced water volume. But the pros, you're going to be able to grow all kinds of plants that you can't put in a fish tank that you would normally put in like a terrarium or like just regular house plants, right? You can grow whatever you want out of it because they're not submerged in water. You might have the roots in the water. But yeah, if that's what you want to do, go for it. And if you need any help, leave me comments. I'll help you. I'll walk you through it. But yeah, totally. It'd be really cool.
So what attainable, interesting centerpiece fish, 90-gallon RODI remineralizing, lots of hiding places, 2 yo-yos, 8 neons, 8 harlequin rasboras, 4 hill streams, 4 diamond tetras, and 3 bleeding hearts. That's it. So I'm gonna be honest. I think that already that tank's a little bit tricky because you've got like neons with hill streams and neons like warmer water than the hill streams. Yeah.
That's something I got to think about because it's like just what you have in there is kind of like.
Well, you've got a lot of color. You've got a lot of.
Trying to think of something.
Interesting centerpiece fish. Bosemani rainbow. That's what I'm going with.
Yeah. I feel like if you, that's the other thing too. Like, do you want that centerpiece fish swimming up near the top of the water? Do you want it swimming down at the bottom? What kind of rockscape and hardscape do you have that is going to provide hiding spaces, things like that? Because I'm almost thinking like a pair of dwarf cichlids, like a pair of Pistogramma cockatoides.
Yeah.
You get your real bright color, and they're pretty mobile across the bottom of the aquarium. And most of your other fish are going to generally stay medium high. So you're not going to get a lot of interaction there between them. So it'll pretty much be pretty peaceful. But you'll probably get the size and the color pop that you want out of a pair of Pistogramma cockatoides. And you can get any color you want. You want yellow, orange, red, blue. You can get into your Agassiz eyes for your blues. You got lots of variation there to pick from too. So that would kind of be my idea there.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think in all honesty, I don't think I'd even be looking for a centerpiece fish in that tank.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because I don't think you need it. I think you've got enough other things there. I'd probably just look at increasing some of your schools.
Yeah, increase your harlequins, increase your neons, your diamond tetra. Yeah, just increase your schools because once you get those, if you don't do a centerpiece fish, increase your schools because you're going to get the schooling effect where you'll have the different schools like passing each other. And if you get that, like you won't need a centerpiece fish because your eyes will just be drawn to the balls in the schools and shoaling of the fish. And that looks really cool too. I kind of have that in my 125 with my barb community because all the different barbs and the Buenos Aires tetras and things like that kind of school past each other. And that just looks awesome. And I've got the dwarf cichlids in there. I've got the hongsloys, which they're bright yellow. I've got the crebensis, which get like the real fancy coloring, the orange and yellows on the tails. And really, with all the schooling that goes on in there, you don't even really see them that much.
Yeah, Brian, I saw you said I had no sense of direction in my initial selection, and I completely understand that. I think that happens to a lot of people, no big deal, especially if you only have like 1 or 2 tanks, because you want all the fish, you know. Mm-hmm. So you don't end up with. I think it's only when you start having like, all right, now I've got several different tanks, and you start kind of getting a more of a clean direction when you're doing the tank.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think like You take those neon tetras and you get 20 of them in that 90 gallon, and that's going to look awesome. And you get, so I definitely would probably just look at increasing your school size, and I think you'd be happier that way. In all honesty.
So we're just getting down to it. Hi, Jimmy. 29 gallon currently with a bunch of guppies and shrimp. I think I'm going to take the plunge and up the awesome in that tank.
Yeah.
Is that the one that was talking about the Riparium?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I would. Totally. And since you already have the fish that are going to be a little bit smaller in there, they're going to do perfectly fine. So.
Yeah, as long as you're not like crazy with how many guppies you have. I mean, I don't think most people, like I said, I had 300 in my 29 gallon. I don't think most people do that. But yeah, as long as you're not too crazy on that, I think that probably would be cool. I was going to read the next question on the chat, but then Travis changed it, so that's all right.
Just want to hear what size tank for.
What size tank for fairy cichlids? 33 long or 40 breeder? 40 breeder.
Yeah, I didn't even see the second. 40 breeder, hands down. You're going to get a better footprint. You got more depth front to back. You're able to scape that tank a lot better. 33 longs are going to be good if you have nano fish. And it's just a weird size tank. It's a 55 gallon. It's only 12 inches tall. It's like, it's a longer 20 long or a short 55, however you look at it. And 55s are already hard enough to try to scape out or do anything with because you don't have the depth. So if you had to pick between the two, plus 40 breeders are cheaper than 33 longs.
Yeah.
So you're going to get more volume. It's going to cost you less. You're going to have more versatility with it. 40 breeder. You
know where I'd go with the 33 longs if I ever do that darter tank.
Yeah.
Because you could do like a river, like if you set it up, not a fast flowing river, but a river stream kind of thing.
I had the option to get a 33 gallon, and I was going to do it until I got a 40 breeder.
Yeah.
For my axolotls, because axolotls want the length so they can walk back and forth. And I had them in a 20 long, and I was just like, oh, let's just make it a little longer, add 16 more inches to it roughly, so that he has more room to walk back and forth. And then I was like, nah, 40 breeder. I'm like, it's cheaper. You can get lids for it a lot easier, because some 33s have no cross brace because of the height, and trying to find a lid for that is like almost impossible. You'd have to go custom, which I've got videos on custom lids and all crap like that. So, but it's just 40 breeders are just easier to work with, hands down. You get more volume. It's just easier.
Yeah, and if you want to change up someday, there's lots of options for 40 breeders, So.
Yeah, same question as Brian for his tank. Molly's Platy's Variatus tank, centerpiece fish besides my before mentioned electric blue car.
Molly's Platy's. What would I put with those?
Keep in mind it's a high flow, 2 FX4s. 3 of the 4 nozzles pointed at the surface to break up the flow and give a lot of oxygen.
So that's another tank. I don't think you need a centerpiece fish for it.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it depends what Molly, Platies, but I don't know. If I was going to look for something I'd probably look for something. I'd almost look for something that's like a whitish or blanding color. No, awesome. Maybe. Well, I'll tell you what I would put in there with them. And this is not a centerpiece fish in anybody's mind. But what I would put in there with them is Siamese algae eaters, because I love Siamese algae eaters. I think they're just the coolest, dopiest, funniest fish you can get, especially if you have a couple of them.
Yeah.
But no, that's not a centerpiece fish. So, but I think it would be cool because I do like the way they look, but I almost feel like when you have a lot of color with the fish you have, and I'm assuming you do with your platies and mollies, I almost want something that doesn't have color because it's got
just something that's going to act different so it stands out a little more.
Yeah. I mean, this might be another good one for some dwarf cichlids.
Yeah. Yeah, if you ever have a tank that's just like it's weird. Like I've got my 65 gallon and it's just full of guppies, right? There's probably like 100 guppies in it, and it was just like, what can I put in there just to make it different, you know? And I actually put a pair of the crebensis cichlids that I bred out from my original pair. I put them in there just to see how they would do, how they would react, and they're actually in there. They're having babies. They're spawning all the time, and the guppies don't bother them, and they don't bother the guppies, and it's just something a little bit different. But you know what else is in there? Is some Bosemani's.
Yeah.
And they're, you know, they're a good centerpiece fish too. Like, but if you're gonna go Bosemani's, I would definitely go online and order them from a breeder, because the colors that you're gonna get at local fish stores are very washed out, especially the chain stores. So definitely get them from a breeder, or did she just bite the glass? I think she just bit the glass. That's what that snap was. Yeah, that's that. Yep, 40 breeders a great place for a planted tank. Low light, highlight. Yeah, you can't really go wrong with a 40 breeder. It's probably, if you didn't have a budget on starting an aquarium and you said, what should I get? That's probably the first thing I would point you to.
Yeah, I think either a 40 or a 75. I think 75 is kind of getting that, like, okay, that might be too big for me.
Yeah.
I don't think it will be, you know, once you have them, but I think the 40 breeder, you know, you get the feel of a big tank without taking up the space of a big tank. I think is kind of that nice piece.
And pretty much if you go to your, say your PetSmart or your Petco, or if you live outside of the United States, and you have a different chain store for pet store, pretty much everything they have there, 90% of it, we'll say, can go in a 40 breeder, no problem.
Yeah.
Right? Even goldfish, right? You want to get fancy goldfish? I get this question all the time because I got the goldfish logo, and they're probably one of my favorite fish, which is why they have my largest tank, 300. 2 fancy goldfish in a 40 breeder, perfect, right? But if you were to do a 40 long, can't do it, and that's just because of the footprint. You got good footprint, they got room to move, you got versatility. It's probably one of the most versatile tanks that you can have that size, and I think that's why I like the 300 so much, because it's like an upscaled 40 breeder.
Yeah.
Right?
That's true. I guess it is. I never thought about that.
You know,
you're right.
You got the depth front to back, and that's one of my favorite things about tanks, is when you have that depth, because you're constantly looking at fish that are going like this, right? But not many people get to see an aquarium where fish go like this, right? And once you get that depth front to back, that adds a whole other level, because the fish can actually act more naturally instead of just moving back and forth.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, I mean, you're talking about, like, I love your 75 gallon up here, but you're right. Like, this is not, you know, you don't get that natural perspective with some of the fish in there. I would love this tank at my house, but I would make it a nano tank, you know, just because of that. Because I do like how long it is. I think that's cool. But yeah, the depth is where you get that perspective piece, and not just from the fish, but also from plants. You can start kind of layering them on top of each other. So yeah, 40 breeder, I'm with you. It's definitely a way to go.
Yeah, 50 and a 125 doesn't look like much. Still adding as I quarantine.
Yeah, no, yeah, 50 and a 125. You're right.
Yeah.
Travis, how many fish do you think you have in your 125 out there right now?
Probably 100.
Yeah.
And even that's like, I could probably add more. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think, 50s, especially with those smaller fish, is not going to look like a lot.
Yeah, because I had, in that 125, that was originally a goldfish tank, and I had like 8, and that was it. And it was like, you just looking at it, you're like, wow, that's pretty maxed out. I think at the one point I had 10 in there, and I was like, whoa, I'm pushing it. You know, and now you look at it, and there's fish everywhere. There's like 10 bristlenose plecos in there. There's probably like 20 barbs of the tiger barb variety, and then you got black ruby barbs, cherry barbs, golden barbs, dwarf cichlids. You got angels in there. You get like it, and you could add more, and it looks awesome, right? So,
all right, I've got a question for you, Travis.
All right,
because you say pleco, I say pleco. So which is the right way?
I guess it depends on how you learned it and how you grew up. Because I know the correct pronunciation is beta, and I still say beta,
Yeah,
even
I
though
would say
I
what,
know
yeah.
it's beta. And it's just because that's what I've said
I
my
don't know.
entire time.
I don't know any other place besides Northeast PA where people call them plecos.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of people in Northeast PA do call them plecos.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I hear it, it kind of hurts me a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure it's plecostomus.
Yeah.
So pleco, but all right,
Yeah.
whatever. If it drives you nuts, let me know and make Travis change
it's probably
what he says.
it's probably just like Pennsylvania slang. Well, not slang, but like how they say like every state has an accent,
Yeah.
but like you never know.
Yeah,
Like,
until
if
you go
we go to
somewhere else.
Texas, you can be like, wow, that's a very southern accent, you know. And then they come up here and it's like, wow, that's a very northern accent. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Well, even just the difference, because I grew up down, like you're talking about Keystone Clash, that's actually going to be in Morgantown, Pennsylvania, which is southeast. That's where I grew up. Like, my first job was working, like, where the Keystone Clash is going to be is connected to what used to be called Mom's Mall. It's no longer Mom's Mall. There's barely any malls left. But one of my first jobs was working there at that mall. When I think I was 14, and so that's where I grew up. But even coming up here, I noticed like there's a big change in the accent just in the same state, 2 hours north. So yeah, absolutely.
So we are getting well over our 1 hour point here. We're like an hour 20 minutes in. So we'll do a couple last questions, and then we're gonna wrap it up. Tim and I are planning on doing live streams at least once a month, pretty much from now on until we change that. So make sure you guys subscribe to both our channels. Stay tuned. So we'll get the last couple ones here. What's a good community tank with swordtails in a 40 breeder? So basically, you're looking at swordtails, mollies, platies, swordtails. Anything that will work with one of those will work with the other because they're all basically about the same fish.
Yeah.
So 40 breeder.
Swordtails can be a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah, they're a little
some
more
of the other
aggressive.
ones.
The other thing too with swordtails is you're really only going to get if you have males and females, you're really only going to see the swords on your most dominant males. The other ones won't really come in if they're being dominated. So that's the thing that's tricky about swordtails too. But I mean, most of your tropical community fish will work in there.
Yeah.
You're not really going to have any issues. It's not like they're super aggressive or anything. But yeah.
No, I would stay away from like the real small.
Yeah, I wouldn't do any like
tropical
nano fish, like especially expensive ones.
Yeah, I'd be tempted to try neons. They're probably,
they'd probably
now
good.
when you first get them, maybe they're too small, but as they get older, they'd be all right.
Yeah, your dogs are barking at mine in the background. Yeah, that's my wife. 8 hens, 9 roosters. 8 hens, 1 rooster, 9 chickens total. 2 dogs, a cat, bearded dragon. Yeah, 9 roosters. Yeah. Yeah. So we'll probably run this stream for maybe 10 more minutes, and then we'll wrap it up. 38-gallon planted with swordtails.
That'd be it. See, I like that. Like, I'm gonna be honest. When it comes to those live bears, I really tend to like tanks that are just one type of live bear.
Yep.
And then that's it, because they're gonna breed out like crazy when they're by themselves.
Yeah.
When you start mixing another fish, they're gonna. Now, sometimes the swordtails, the mollies, like they will actually eat their own young, especially if you don't have a lot of hiding places for them. But you're usually going to get some that stick around. When you start adding other community fish, I feel like usually you kind of lose that breeding action in those aquariums. So a 38 with just swordtails, I like that. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
So I'd be up for that one. And that's going back to the other question with community fish. I think that kind of was where it makes me difficult for me to answer, because it's like, why would I add anything else to that? Like, I just add more plants if I want more color to it, if I or whatever. And
that's the one thing about planted aquariums that make it really nice, because you're not only enjoying the beauty of the fish, but you get to enjoy the beauty of the plants too. So like Tim was saying, a lot of times you don't need to add anymore, or if you're like, I wish there was something that like swam around in this area of the tank, right? Like maybe you could just put a plant there to fill that in, and then because you added that plant there, now the fish may just come there and swim around the plant because it's new. And sometimes just changing the scape a little bit will make all the difference. So
all right, well, we probably should
Yeah.
Yeah, we probably need to end it.
Yeah.
But thank you guys for tuning in, checking it out, and hanging out and talking with us. We appreciate it. Look forward to seeing some of you guys at Keystone Clash.
Yeah. I'm gonna sign up for that hopefully today if I can find that link. So we'll definitely be there. Even if I don't get the discounted link, I'm still gonna sign up for it. I'll be down there with Tim. So thank you everybody for watching Trapfish Aquatics live stream with Ian's Fish Room. So like I said, we're gonna be planning on doing these once a month. So I'll definitely keep you guys updated when the next one's gonna happen. We may also start doing some live streaming on Tim's channel, kind of share the love a little bit. And if you haven't already subscribed to Tim's channel, link in the description down below for his channel. As his birthday present, let's get him up to 1,000 subscribers. He's getting pretty close. His channel's doing really well. So let's go ahead and get him up there. And yeah, make sure you guys stay tuned for the next live stream. Hope to see you there. I think we're just going to do another question and answer one. These seem to go pretty well. So if you guys have anything that you want us to talk about in the next one, go ahead and drop it in the comments. We'll make a list, and we'll talk about anything in the comments first before we get to the chat and the live stream on the next one, and we'll try and cover things. So yep, that's it from this one. So thanks for watching Trapfish Aquatics. We'll see you guys in the next video.
Thanks, guys.
Where is the stop button?